The trading station floated in the black emptiness of space like a metal flower. Thousands of lights blinked on its surface. Ships came and went every hour. Aliens of all kinds walked through its corridors, buying, selling, and making deals. Hante wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the broken coolant pipe in front of him. He had been working on this problem for 3 hours. The ship was old. The parts were older, but he loved the steady horizon like a family member. Every scratch on its walls told a story. He was a thin man with tired eyes and hands that knew machines better than people. At 34 years old, he had spent more time in space than on Earth. The stars were his home now. Above him, the ship hummed quietly. Outside, the station was full of noise and movement. But down here in the engine room, there was only the sound of his tools and his own breathing. His communicator beeped. "Tay, how is the repair going?" The voice belonged to Captain Park Day. "Almost done, Captain. Give me another hour." "Good. We leave as soon as the cargo is loaded." Hante smiled and returned to his work. Captain Day was not a man who wasted words. He said what needed to be said and nothing more. In the 5 years Hante had served under him, he had never seen the captain lose his temper. Not once. The man had patience like a mountain has stone. 3 levels above the engine room, Kim Yuna stood near the main airlock and watched the crowds outside. She was 29, with short black hair and eyes that never stopped moving. Before joining the steady horizon, she had been a military pilot. She had fought in 2 border conflicts. She had seen things that still visited her in dreams. Now she was the security officer for a small merchant ship. Some people might call that a step down. Yuna called it peace, but old habits never really die. Her hand rested near her weapon without her even thinking about it. Her body was always ready, always waiting. A group of tall, pale aliens walked past the ship. They were Sylvan, a species known for their cold logic and long lives. They looked at Yuna with curious eyes but did not stop. Behind them came a pair of insectoid Korath, their many legs clicking on the metal floor. Every alien that passed gave the human ship extra space. They did not come close. They did not make eye contact. Yuna was used to this. Humans had only been part of the Galactic Union for 60 years. They were still new, still strange, and the stories about them had spread far and wide. Most species thought the stories were lies, exaggerations. How could such small, soft creatures be dangerous? They had no claws, no armor, no venom. They could not even see in the dark. Yuna knew the truth. So did every human who traveled the stars. The stories were not lies. If anything, they were too gentle. Captain Park Day finished signing the trade documents and shook hands with Vril, a Korath merchant who represented the local trade guild. Vril was nervous. His mandibles clicked rapidly whenever Day spoke. His 4 eyes kept looking at the door, like he wanted to escape. Day noticed but said nothing. He had learned long ago that his smile made aliens uncomfortable. Something about human teeth. So he smiled more, just to see what would happen. "The fuel crystals will be delivered within the hour," Vril said. "Your medical supplies have already been transferred to our warehouse. Thank you for your business," Day said warmly. Vril clicked his mandibles again. "Yes. Good. Thank you. Safe travels, Captain." The Korath practically ran out of the room. Day allowed himself a small laugh. 41 years old, and he still found alien reactions to humans amusing. Back on Earth, he had been nobody special. A cargo ship captain, a man who moved things from one place to another. Out here, he was something that made other species nervous. He did not abuse this power. He never threatened. He never raised his voice. But he knew what he was, and he knew what humans could become when pushed. He hoped he would never have to show these aliens the truth. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door opened, and a tall Sylvan woman entered. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes were like silver coins. She moved with the grace of flowing water. "Captain Park Day," she said. "I am Mora. I manage this station." Day stood and offered a polite bow. "Administrator Mora, how can I help you?" Mora did not sit. She did not smile. Her face was as still as carved ice. "I have come to give you a warning," she said. 3 days ago, our long-range sensors detected a Boran raiding fleet. They are moving through this region. They have attacked 4 ships already. Day's expression did not change, but his eyes grew sharp. Boran, I have heard of them. They are dangerous, Mora said. They do not follow Union laws. They do not respect treaties. They take what they want and kill anyone who resists. How many ships? At least 3 warships, perhaps more. Day nodded slowly. Thank you for the warning. We will be careful. Mora hesitated. Something like concern crossed her cold face. Captain, there is something else you should know. The Boran have never encountered humans before. They do not know the stories. They do not know the rules. The rules? Mora's silver eyes met his. Every species in this sector knows certain things about humans. We know to be polite. We know to be patient. We know that when a human stops smiling, it is time to worry. And we know that when a human says they are getting annoyed, it is time to run. She paused. The Boran do not know these things. They will see you as easy prey. Small, weak, valuable as slaves. Day was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled again. That warm and friendly smile that made aliens so nervous. Then they will learn, he said softly. Mora looked at him. For just a moment, something like fear flickered in her ancient eyes. Then she nodded and left without another word. Day stood alone in the meeting room. Outside the window, he could see the stars stretching into forever. Somewhere out there, a Boran fleet was hunting. He thought about his crew. Han Tae in the engine room, Kim Yuna at the airlock. The 3 others scattered around the ship. 5 humans in total. 5 soft, small, clawless creatures. He thought about his wife back on Earth, waiting for him to come home. He thought about the promise he had made to her. Then he picked up his communicator. All crew, this is the captain. Finish your tasks quickly. We leave in 1 hour, and everyone should check their weapons. We might have trouble ahead. In the engine room, Han Tae heard the message and sighed. He hated trouble, but he reached under his workbench and pulled out a plasma cutter. It was a tool, not a weapon, but in human hands, anything could become a weapon. At the airlock, Kim Yuna heard the message and smiled. Her hand tightened on her gun. The steady horizon prepared to fly into danger, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Boran were waiting. The steady horizon jumped out of hyperspace and into a trap. 3 Boran warships surrounded them. They were massive, ugly things covered in spikes and weapons. Their hulls were painted with the colors of blood and fire. Each ship was 10 times the size of the small merchant vessel. Alarms screamed throughout the steady horizon. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Han Tae grabbed his console as the ship shook. Captain, we have 3 hostile ships. They came out of nowhere. On the bridge, Captain Park Day stood calmly and looked at the view screen. The Boran warships hung in space like hungry wolves. Shields up, he said quietly. Do not power weapons yet. Kim Yuna ran onto the bridge, her gun already in her hand. Captain, wait, Day said. Let us see what they want first. The view screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was a Boran face, and it was terrifying. The creature had dark green scales and yellow eyes with black slits for pupils. A long scar ran from his forehead to his jaw. His mouth was full of teeth that looked like broken glass. This was Kreth, captain of the Iron Fang and leader of this raiding fleet. He had conquered 12 star systems. He had killed thousands. He feared nothing in the universe. He looked at the humans and laughed. What is this? Kreth said, his voice like rocks grinding together. A tiny ship with tiny creatures? This will be easy. Day kept his face calm and friendly. I am Captain Park Day of the merchant vessel Steady Horizon. We are carrying medical supplies and fuel crystals. We have no quarrel with you. Kreth leaned forward, his yellow eyes bright with greed. Everything you have now belongs to me. Your cargo, your ship, your crew. Surrender now, and I might let some of you live as slaves. I would prefer to negotiate, Day said. We can give you 30% of our cargo. A fair payment for safe passage. The Boran captain laughed again. The sound was like thunder. You do not negotiate with me, little creature. I take what I want. I am asking politely, Day said. His voice was still calm, still warm. Please let us pass. There is no need for violence. Kreth stared at him. For a moment, something like confusion crossed his scarred face. He had threatened thousands of ships. He had watched captains beg and cry and scream, but this human just stood there, smiling, asking politely. It made no sense. You are either very brave or very stupid, Kreth growled. I am just trying to avoid trouble, Day said. Trouble has found you. Kreth turned to someone off-screen. Fire a warning shot. Show them we are serious. A beam of red light shot from the nearest Boran ship. It struck the steady horizon's shields with a sound like a giant bell. The whole ship shook. Sparks flew from a console on the bridge. Hante's voice came through the communicator. Shields holding. But that hurt. We cannot take many hits like that. Kim Yuna's hand tightened on her weapon. Her eyes were cold and focused. She was ready to fight. She was always ready to fight, but Day raised his hand slightly, telling her to wait. That was a warning, Kreth said. The next one will not miss anything important. Power down your engines. Prepare to be boarded. Day took a slow breath. I understand that you are powerful. I understand that you have many ships and many soldiers, but I am asking you, one captain, to another, please reconsider. Kreth's eyes narrowed. Why do you keep asking? Do you not see that you have lost? I see 3 ships and 1, Day said. I see that you are bigger and stronger. I see all of these things. But I also know something that you do not know. And what is that? Day's smile did not change, but something in his eyes grew darker. You have never fought humans before, Kreth snorted. I have heard stories. Soft creatures from a soft world. You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. You are prey animals pretending to be predators. The stories you heard were not complete. Then tell me, little human, what makes you so special? Day was quiet for a moment. Behind him, Kim Yuna waited like a coiled spring. Throughout the ship, the other crew members were moving to their positions, preparing for what they knew was coming. We are patient, Day said finally. More patient than you can imagine. We smile when we are angry. We speak softly when we want to scream. We hold ourselves back, again and again, because we have learned that violence should be the last choice. He paused, but when we stop holding back, when our patience finally runs out, we become something else, something that has survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that burned entire continents, something that hunted mammoths with sharpened sticks and conquered our world not because we were the strongest, but because we never, ever, gave up. Kreth laughed, but it was a shorter laugh than before. Pretty words, but words do not stop plasma cannons. No, Day agreed. They do not. Another shot hit the steady horizon. More alarms, more sparks. Hante reported that shields were down to 60%. Last chance, Kreth said. Surrender or die. Day looked at the view screen. He looked at the scarred face of the Boran warlord. He thought about everything he had tried. The politeness, the offers of peace, the warnings, none of it had worked. He turned to Kim Yuna. She met his eyes and nodded slowly. She understood. He turned back to the screen. I have tried to be reasonable, Day said. I have tried to be patient. I have asked nicely, again and again. But you do not want peace. You want blood. Finally, you understand, Kreth said with a grin. No, Day replied. You do not understand. Not yet. But you will. He reached up and touched a control on his chair. Throughout the ship, lights flickered and changed from white to red. It was a signal that every human crew member knew. It meant that talking was over. You have made your choice, Day said. Now I will make mine. Kreth leaned forward, interested despite himself. And what choice is that? Park Day smiled one last time. It was not a warm smile anymore. It was not friendly. It was the smile of something old and dangerous, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. I choose to stop being patient. He cut the communication. On the bridge of the Iron Fang, Kreth stared at the blank screen. For just a moment, A strange feeling crept through his body. It was not quite fear. He had not felt fear in 20 years, but it was something close. He shook it off and turned to his second-in-command. "Send the boarding parties," he ordered. "Take that ship. Kill anyone who resists." 30 Boran warriors loaded into boarding pods. They were the best fighters in 3 systems. Each one had killed dozens of enemies. They had claws that could cut through metal. They had scales that could stop bullets. They were ready for anything, or so they thought. The boarding pods launched into space, racing toward the tiny human ship, and on the steady horizon, 5 humans prepared to teach the Boran a lesson they would never forget. Far away on the trading station, Vril the Korath merchant stood in front of a communication screen. His 4 eyes were wide with horror. His mandibles clicked so fast they made a buzzing sound. He had been monitoring the distress beacon from the steady horizon. He had heard every word of the conversation between Captain Day and the Boran warlord. "We have to leave," he said to his crew. "Now. Right now." His first officer looked confused. "Sir? Why?" "The Boran are 3 days away from here. The Boran are attacking a human ship," Vril said. "Do you not understand what that means? It means those humans are dead. The Boran have 30 warriors. The humans have 5 crew members." Vril grabbed his officer by the shoulders. "Listen to me carefully. I traded with that human captain." I looked into his eyes. He smiled at me the entire time. Friendly, calm, patient. Do you know what humans call that? Being polite? No. They call it holding back. Vril's voice dropped to a whisper. "I have read the reports. I have studied the histories. Humans are not like us. They are not like any species in the galaxy. They evolved on a death world, a planet that tried to kill them every single day. And they survived. They did more than survive. They conquered." The officer pulled away from his grip. "They are soft. They have no natural weapons. They do not need natural weapons. They make their own. And when they cannot make weapons, they use their hands, their teeth, their entire bodies. They will fight until their hearts stop beating. And even then, I have heard stories of humans who kept fighting after they should have been dead." Mora, the station administrator, approached them with silent footsteps. Her silver eyes were fixed on the communication screen. "You are afraid," she said to Vril. It was not a question. "Yes," the Korath admitted. "I am very afraid. The Boran have 3 warships. The humans have 1 small merchant vessel. Logic says the Boran will win." Vril made a sound that was almost like a human laugh, but sadder. "Logic. Yes. Every species uses logic. We calculate numbers. We measure strength. We predict outcomes based on data." He pointed at the screen. "Humans do not think like that. When they get angry, truly angry, they stop calculating. They just act. And their actions are terrifying." Mora tilted her head. "I warned the human captain about the Boran. I told him they did not know the rules." "What did he say?" "He said they would learn." Vril closed all 4 of his eyes. "Then may the gods help those poor Boran fools. They have no idea what is coming." On the steady horizon, the red emergency lights painted everything the color of blood. Captain Park Day stood on the bridge, watching the boarding pods approach on his screen. 6 pods. 30 warriors. Kim Yuna stood beside him. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with cold fire. She had seen battle before. She had killed before. She did not enjoy it, but she did not fear it either. "Orders, Captain?" she asked. Day turned to face his crew. The 5 humans of the steady horizon looked back at him. Han Te had come up from engineering, a plasma cutter glowing in his hand. The 3 other crew members carried whatever weapons they could find. They were not soldiers. They were mechanics, pilots, and cargo handlers, but they were human. "Listen carefully," Day said. "These Boran think they know what we are. They think we are soft, weak, easy prey. They are wrong." He looked at each of them in turn. "Our ancestors survived ice ages. They hunted animals 10 times their size with nothing but sharpened sticks and rocks. They crossed oceans on wooden boats. They built cities, then burned them down, then built them again. They fought each other in wars so terrible that the ground itself was poisoned for generations. His voice grew harder, and through all of that, through every disaster and every battle, one thing remained true. Humans do not give up. Humans do not stop. When everything else has fallen, when every other hope is gone, humans keep fighting. Kim Yuna nodded slowly. The others straightened their backs. The Boran have numbers, Day continued. They have size. They have claws and armor. But they do not have what we have. They do not have 10,000 years of survival in their blood. They do not have the hunger that drove our ancestors to conquer a world. Han Te raised his plasma cutter. The blue light reflected in his eyes. What do you want us to do, Captain? Day smiled. It was not a nice smile. Show them why every species in this galaxy knows the rule. Show them why, when a human says they are getting annoyed, smart creatures run. The first boarding pod attached to the hull with a metallic clang. Then another. Then another. Yuna moved toward the main corridor. I will take the primary breach point. Te, you handle the systems. Make this ship fight for us. Han Te nodded and ran back toward engineering. His mind was already working on plans. He could control the lights, the gravity, the temperature, the doors. The steady horizon was old. But she had tricks. The other 3 crew members spread out through the ship, taking positions in dark corners and narrow passages. They knew this vessel. They knew every hidden space, every maintenance tunnel, every shadow. The Boran knew none of this. A loud cutting sound filled the air. The boarding party was breaking through the airlock. Captain Day walked calmly to the weapons locker and pulled out an old projectile rifle. It was not as fancy as plasma weapons. It did not have targeting computers or energy cells. But it was reliable, and in the right hands, it was deadly. He checked the ammunition, loaded the chamber, released the safety. On the bridge of the Iron Fang, Kreth watched his warriors prepare to enter the human ship. He expected this to be over quickly. 5 soft creatures against 30 Boran elites? It would be a slaughter. His communication officer suddenly looked up with a strange expression. Sir, we are receiving multiple transmissions from other ships in the sector. What kind of transmissions? Warnings, sir. They are all warning us, telling us to retreat. The officer paused, confused. They seem to be afraid, but they are afraid for us, not for the humans. Kreeth growled with annoyance. Cowards, all of them, afraid of stories and legends. Sir, one message is from a Korath trader who met the human captain recently. He says, and I quote, "You have made a terrible mistake. Run now while you still can. Delete it. But sir, maybe we should listen. So many species are warning us about humans. There must be some truth to the stories." Kreeth turned and struck his officer across the face. The blow sent the younger Boran crashing against the wall. I do not run. Kreth snarled. I do not hide. I do not listen to fairy tales about magical humans who cannot be beaten. They are flesh and blood, just like any other creature, and flesh and blood can die. He turned back to the screen showing his boarding party. Now watch. Watch as my warriors tear those humans apart. Then you will see how foolish those warnings were. The airlock door on the steady horizon finally gave way. It crashed inward with a shower of sparks. The first Boran warriors rushed through, weapons raised, teeth bared. They found a dark corridor. The lights had been turned off. The only illumination came from the soft red glow of emergency panels. Shadows filled every corner. The lead warrior sniffed the air. He could smell the humans. They were close. He took one step forward, and the darkness came alive. Kim Yuna dropped from above, silent as death. She moved so fast that the first Boran did not even see the blade that ended him. Before his body hit the floor, she had already moved to the second warrior. In engineering, Han Te smiled and pressed a button. Throughout the ship, gravity shifted. The Boran stumbled and fell. The humans, who knew it was coming, stayed on their feet. The battle had begun, and the Boran were about to learn why their prey was actually the predator. The first Boran warrior died without making a sound. The second managed to scream before Kim Yuna's knife found his throat. The third tried to raise his weapon. But she was already past him. A ghost made of fury and steel. The other warriors opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the dark corridor. But Yuna was not there anymore. She had vanished into the shadows like smoke in the wind. "Where did she go?" one warrior shouted. "I cannot see anything. Use your heat vision." The Boran switched to thermal imaging. Their eyes could see body heat through walls. It was supposed to give them an advantage. Instead, they saw nothing. In engineering, Hante watched through the security cameras and smiled. He had dropped the temperature throughout the ship to near freezing. The cold hid the human body heat. To the Boran's thermal eyes, the entire vessel looked empty, but the humans could see perfectly well. They had grown up on a planet where night lasted for hours. Their eyes had evolved to work in darkness, and they had spent months learning every inch of this ship. The Boran had walked into a trap. 3 more warriors fell to Yuna before they even knew she was there. She moved between them like a dancer, each step precise, each strike fatal. She did not fight like the other species they had conquered. She did not stand and exchange blows. She appeared, attacked, and vanished before they could respond. One Boran finally managed to grab her arm. He was twice her size, with muscles like cables and claws like knives. He should have torn her in half. Instead, she twisted in his grip, broke 2 of his fingers, and drove her blade through the gap in his armor. He fell, and she was gone again. "What is she?" a young warrior whispered, fear cracking his voice. His commander did not answer. He was too busy watching the shadows. In another part of the ship, Captain Park Day waited in a storage room. He heard the Boran coming. Heavy footsteps, clicking claws, the smell of reptile and fear. The door opened. 4 warriors rushed in, weapons ready. Day was sitting on a crate, his rifle resting across his knees. He looked up at them with calm eyes. "You should not have come here," he said quietly. The lead warrior laughed. "Stupid human. You are trapped. Drop your weapon and maybe we will kill you quickly." Day tilted his head. "Have you heard the story of how humans hunted in ancient times? I do not care about stories. You should." Day stood slowly. "We were not the fastest animals. We were not the strongest. But we had something no other creature had. Patience. We would chase our prey for hours, days. We would follow them until their legs gave out, until their hearts burst from exhaustion. We did not need to be faster. We just needed to never stop." The warrior took a step forward. "You talk too much." "Perhaps," Day agreed, "but talking gave my engineer time to seal the doors behind you." The warrior spun around. The door was closed, locked. Red lights blinked on the control panel. When he turned back, Day was no longer sitting. He was moving. The first shot took the warrior in the chest. The second and third finished his companions. The fourth tried to run, clawing at the sealed door. Day walked up behind him without hurry. "I gave you a chance," Day said. "I asked politely. Remember that." The rifle spoke one more time. Throughout the ship, the battle continued. Hante controlled everything from his engineering station. He played with the gravity, making it heavy in some areas and light in others. Boran warriors stumbled and fell while humans walked easily. Knowing when and where the changes would come, he adjusted the air vents, filling certain corridors with freezing cold and others with burning heat. The Boran, used to their climate-controlled ships, suffered terribly. The humans, who had evolved on a planet with every possible weather, adapted and kept fighting. He sealed doors at exactly the right moment, separating warrior groups into smaller and smaller units. He opened other doors, leading confused Boran into ambushes, where human crew members waited with weapons and fury. Byung-ho, the ship's pilot, was not a soldier. He was a 53-year-old man who had spent most of his life flying cargo vessels, but when 3 Boran warriors found him in the navigation room, he did not run or surrender. He grabbed a fire extinguisher and swung it like a club. The first warrior went down with a crushed knee. The second was blinded by the chemical spray. The third was larger, stronger, and should have killed the old pilot easily. Instead, Byung-ho fought like a wild animal. He bit, he scratched, he kicked. When the warrior pinned him to the ground, he grabbed a broken piece of console and drove it into the Boran's eye. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts when Kim Yuna found him. The 3 warriors were dead at his feet. "Are you okay?" she asked. Byung-ho wiped blood from his face. I am too old for this, he said. Then he picked up a fallen Boran weapon and smiled. But I am not dead yet. On the bridge of the Iron Fang, Kreth watched in disbelief as his warriors fell one by one. The life signs on his display disappeared, like candles being blown out. This is impossible, he whispered. His second-in-command stood beside him, face pale with fear. Sir, we have lost 20 warriors. The boarding party is being destroyed by 5 humans. Kreth slammed his fist against his chair. How? They have no training, no weapons. They are nothing. They are not nothing, sir. The officer's voice trembled. They are exactly what the story said they were. On the steady horizon, the last group of Boran warriors had gathered in the cargo bay. 10 remained out of 30. They stood back to back, weapons pointing at every shadow, every corner. They had stopped trying to hunt the humans. Now they were just trying to survive. The door at the far end of the bay opened slowly. Captain Park Dae walked through, his rifle over his shoulder. Behind him came Kim Yuna, her knife dripping dark blood. Han Tae followed with his plasma cutter. The other crew members emerged from different doorways, surrounding the Boran. 5 humans, covered in sweat and blood and dust. Exhausted, hurt, but standing, the lead Boran warrior looked at them. For the first time in his life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Terror. What are you? He whispered. Dae looked at him with empty eyes. We are human. We asked you to leave. You did not listen. We surrender. The warrior dropped his weapon. Please. We surrender. Dae nodded slowly. Smart choice. You are the first Boran today to make a smart choice. The remaining warriors dropped their weapons. They fell to their knees, claws spread wide to show they were not a threat. The proud conquerors of 12 systems knelt before 5 small, soft, clawless creatures, and in that moment, they understood why the galaxy feared humans. It was not because humans were the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced. It was because humans never stopped. They never gave up. They would fight with weapons, with tools, with bare hands and broken pieces of metal. They would keep fighting until they won or until their hearts stopped beating, and sometimes, even death was not enough to stop them. The battle was over, but the war was not finished yet. Kreth still waited in his warship, and Captain Park Dae had a message to deliver. The cargo bay of the steady horizon looked like a battlefield. Scorch marks decorated the walls. Broken equipment lay scattered across the floor. The air smelled of smoke and blood and fear. 10 Boran warriors knelt in the center of the room, their hands bound with cable ties that Han Tae had found in a storage locker. They did not resist. They did not speak. They simply stared at the humans with wide, terrified eyes. Captain Park Dae stood before them, covered in dirt and dried blood that was mostly not his own. His uniform was torn. A cut on his forehead had stopped bleeding but left a dark streak down his face. He looked exhausted, but he was smiling. Kim Yuna approached him, wiping her knife clean on a piece of cloth. Captain, the ship is secure. All boarding parties have been neutralized. Casualties on our side. Minor injuries only. Byung-ho needs medical attention, but nothing life-threatening. We were lucky. Dae shook his head slowly. Not luck. Training. Preparation. And thousands of years of evolution that taught us how to fight, how to survive, and how to win against impossible odds. He turned to the kneeling Boran. The warriors flinched at his gaze. Your captain is still out there, Dae said. 3 warships against 1 damaged merchant vessel. He could destroy us easily. The lead warrior, a massive creature with scars covering half his face, found his voice. He will not destroy you. Not now. Not after this. Why not? Because you are something we have never encountered before. The warrior's voice was barely a whisper. We conquered species that were stronger than us, faster than us, smarter than us. But none of them fought like you. None of them refused to give up. None of them attacked us in the darkness with such fury. He looked up at Dae, and there was genuine confusion in his yellow eyes. We thought you were prey. We thought you were weak. But prey does not fight back. Prey does not kill 20 of our best warriors in less than an hour. You are not prey. You are something else. Something we do not have a word for. Day considered this for a moment. Then he walked to the communications panel and activated the connection to the Iron Fang. Kreeth's face appeared on the screen. The Boran warlord looked different now. His confident sneer had disappeared. His eyes were filled with something that might have been fear. Human. Kreeth growled. What have you done to my warriors? Most of them are dead, Day replied calmly. 10 survive. They are my prisoners now. Kreeth's claws dug into the arms of his command chair. Release them. Return them to me, or I will destroy your ship and everyone on it. You could try. Day gestured, and Kim Yuna stepped into view of the camera. She was still holding her knife. Blood dripped from the blade onto the floor. But ask yourself, Captain Kreeth, you sent 30 elite warriors to capture 5 humans. 20 of those warriors are dead. If you destroy this ship, you will lose the remaining 10 as well. He paused, letting the words sink in. And then you will have to explain to your fleet, to your empire, to every species you have conquered, how you lost 30 of your best soldiers to 5 soft creatures from a planet called Earth. Kreeth did not respond. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I have a different suggestion, Day continued. You will leave this sector immediately. You will never attack another human vessel. You will release any human prisoners you may have taken in the past. In exchange, I will return your 10 warriors, and I will not spread the story of what happened here today. The Boran warlord's second-in-command leaned close and whispered urgently in his ear. Kreeth pushed him away with a snarl. You think you can give me orders, human? You think you have won? I still have 3 warships. I could wipe you from existence. Day's smile faded. His eyes grew hard. You could, he agreed. And I would die. My crew would die. This ship would become dust and memory. But before we died, we would find a way to hurt you. That is what humans do. We never go quietly. We never accept defeat without making our enemies pay for every single inch. He stepped closer to the camera. And even if you kill all of us, the story will spread. Other humans will hear what happened. They will come looking for you. Not with merchant ships this time, but with warships of their own. Human warships crewed by human soldiers who have trained their entire lives for battle. And they will find you, Captain Kreeth. They will hunt you across the galaxy. They will chase you until your legs give out, until your heart bursts from exhaustion, because that is what we do. We never stop. We never forget. Silence filled the connection. On the Iron Fang, Kreeth stared at the screen with something new in his eyes. It was fear. Real. Genuine fear. The first fear he had felt in decades. Behind him, his crew watched their captain with growing unease. They had followed him into countless battles. They had never seen him hesitate. They had never seen him afraid, until now. What is your decision? Day asked quietly. Kreeth closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the fear was still there. But so was resignation. We will leave, he said. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. We will never attack human vessels again. And we will release any human prisoners we hold. A wise choice, but know this, human. Kreeth's voice was low and bitter. I will remember this day. I will remember what you have done. And I will make sure every Boran knows about humans. Every ship, every fleet, every colony. They will know that humans are not prey. They will know to never, ever, make them angry. Day smiled again. It was a tired smile, but there was warmth in it now. That is all I have ever wanted, Captain Kreeth. For your people to understand. For everyone to understand. We do not want war. We do not want violence. We want peace, trade, friendship, but we will not be victims. We will not be slaves, and we will fight until our last breath to protect what we love. He ended the communication. Outside, the 3 Boran warships powered up their engines and jumped to hyperspace. In seconds, they were gone. The steady horizon floated alone in the empty void. The battle was over. 3 weeks later, Vril, the Korath merchant, found himself aboard the steady horizon again. He had traveled across the sector to deliver a very generous trade offer. Premium fuel crystals at half the normal price, medical supplies in exchange for nothing but goodwill. and a case of expensive wine from a distant world. He found Hante in the engine room, exactly where he had been before. The human was humming quietly as he worked on yet another repair. The coolant system was still giving him trouble. "You survived," Vril said, his mandibles clicking with amazement. Hante looked up and smiled. "Yes, we survived. The story is everywhere now. Every species knows what happened. They say you killed 30 Boran warriors with only 5 crew members. 20. Hante corrected gently. "We captured 10. Still impossible. The Boran are the finest warriors in the sector. How did you do it?" Hante set down his tools and thought about the question. He remembered the darkness of the corridors, the weight of the plasma cutter in his hands, the faces of the warriors as they realized they were losing. "We did what humans have always done," he said finally. "We refused to give up. We adapted. We used everything we had. And when everything else failed, we got angry." Vril shivered despite himself. "The galaxy has changed, you know. The Boran are no longer raiding. They have retreated to their home systems. Other pirate fleets are doing the same. Word has spread about humans. Everyone knows the rule now." "What rule?" Vril's 4 eyes met Hante's 2. "When a human is polite, be grateful. When a human is patient, be cautious. But when a human says they are getting annoyed, run. Run as fast as you can, because what comes next will not be pleasant." Hante laughed softly. "We are not monsters, you know. We just want to live in peace." "I know," Vril said. "That is what makes you terrifying. Monsters are predictable. They attack because it is their nature. But humans choose. You choose to be kind, to be patient, to be peaceful. And when someone forces you to make a different choice," he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Hante returned to his work, still humming that old song from Earth. The engine room was warm. The ship was safe. His crew was alive. Outside, the stars stretched into forever. Other species moved through the void, buying and selling, living their lives. And among them, humans traveled as well, small, soft, clawless creatures who smiled warmly and spoke politely. But now everyone knew the truth. They knew what lay beneath the smiles, and they knew better than to test the limits of human patience. In his cabin, Captain Parkday wrote a message to his wife on Earth. He told her about the journey, about the battles, about the stars. He told her he would be home soon. Then he looked out his window at the infinite darkness and smiled. Some things were worth fighting for. Some things were worth getting annoyed about. And some lessons, once taught, were never forgotten. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humans were finally getting the respect they deserved.